Lex, you forgot to put in the VFLW premiers as well from a North Melbourne point of view. So I know you'd be very happy for all success to be embraced here. Great to have you here. What a wonderful insight that was. And thank you, Nick, for wonderfully putting that together from Frontrunners. Great to have you here as well. As another, just an athlete voice, but obviously a really caring environmental voice as well. So a huge thank you for another wonderful panel. But of course, we move to our next panel pretty quickly because that is what the day is all about. And our next panel discussion is going to be a national approach to sport infrastructure and engagement. Facilitating this discussion, we're going to welcome him back to the stage, the CEO of SEA. Big round of applause, please. Adam Cheyne, here he is. So you're getting big cheers from board members. That's always a good sign. Joining Adam, well, not only joining Adam, is the chair of Sports Environment Alliance, Margot Foster. Margot, welcome back. Alongside Margot, expert advisor, director, participation, growth, sport, capability and community at the Australian Sports Commission, we welcome Sue McGill. And director and senior principal at Populous, a big round of applause for Al Baxter. Adam, over to you.
I'll let Al come up. He's had a morning. Poor fella. Thank you very much for this panel. And I just want to show the context of kind of where this panel started from. And it started from a conversation probably Sue and I before Christmas. And myself coming from a sports infrastructure background, urban planning, it's always been a key item that's on my agenda. And with Sue's support and with the Australian Sports Commission, always happy to talk climate and environment. And then as the summit planning morphed on, we got to figure out, like, how can we get the industry views in? And Margot's jumped on board, and I'm very grateful for that. And Al from Populous, and they've recently signed on as a partner to SEA, so we're grateful for the industry support from their organisation. So from my perspective, I'll set the tone for today, and then I'll hand over to our amazing speakers. So today we're exploring how a truly national approach to sports infrastructure can drive engagement. And that's kind of with the sustainability and resilience hat on. From our grassroots clubs to world-class stadia, and we're sharing perspectives. And we're going to use a lot, and we're going to put Sue a bit under the bus with the play well strategy here as the anchor here. So thank you, Sue. So we'll get started, and we'll kick off with you, Sue. So what does a national approach to sport infrastructure and engagement mean to you in the context of climate and environment? And use your industry perspective and your insights from your previous years and the future of what you're seeing at the Sports Commission. So thank you.
That's not an easy question to answer, but thank you. Thanks for having me. I know some friendly faces in the crowd. I'm Sue McGill from the Australian Sports Commission. Work on a whole range of different stuff at the Commission, but bring together participation and infrastructure. And in the context of lots of the stuff that we heard from athletes and the previous panel, what you experience when you play, compete, get out there on the field, the track, the ground, wherever it is you do your thing, is impacted not just by the built environment that you find, but also the environment, the climate that you are participating or playing in. So one of the things that we have done from the Sports Commission's perspective is develop with many people in this room the National Participation Strategy, which we refer to as Play Well. One of the key components of that strategy is to develop Australia's first national sport infrastructure strategy, which is no small feat, absolutely. And I know there's a couple of people in the room. I see Adam from Athletics Australia over here. This Adam from Sport Environment Alliance and plenty of others have come together to join an industry advisory group to help us build out that strategy. So, you know, I think it's interesting listening to athletes and listening to people with profile, you know, understanding, for example, the place of football and cricket in the broad Australian sporting community. The Commission plays a role that is not necessarily sexy or interesting to anybody, but it plays a critical role in bringing people together. The opportunity for the Commission to essentially drive a national infrastructure strategy from behind provides us with the opportunity to really think about putting environment and climate at the centre of that strategy. So if you think about, someone said to me the other day, you know, a lot of what sport infrastructure is about is what people see when they go to that club or they go to that venue or they participate in some way. What they don't see is all of the different, sometimes competing, sometimes misaligned, sometimes sort of all over the shop activity that takes place in the background to deliver that venue or that piece of infrastructure. So part of what a national infrastructure strategy will do is try to bring all of that together, align it around a common aim. It won't overreach into the world of sport, into the world of levels of government that invest in sport. But what the Commission can do that other organisations within government can't do is bring all those passionate advocates, those experts together to really contribute to a national infrastructure strategy. So much like Play Well, it won't be our strategy, it'll be a strategy that belongs to the sector. So there's actually 3 or 4 people called Adam on our industry advisory group. I just want to point that out. But the Adams plus everybody else will make sure that we've got environment at the centre. So imagine the change if all of our decisions, our investment, our design, our implementation, our structures had environment and climate at the centre. It would make a huge difference to all of the work that you do and all of the experiences that people from Auskick through to Hot Shots through to Kids Park Run are experiencing. So that's really part of the work that we want to do.
Oh, that's wonderful, and I really appreciate the perspective you give from the Sports Commission, and just starting on this journey has been really humbling because personally it's been on my agenda since starting in the career, and it's just fantastic to have the climate, environment and sustainability theme be able to be integrated throughout that. So we appreciate the involvement of SEA with the Australian Sports Commission, so I just wanted to acknowledge that. Margot, over to you. I'm really keen to share your industry perspective, and you and I have had a number of conversations and understanding where you come from, your background and insights and your extensive industry leadership in this space. And I thought it was important for the group to share a different lens of kind of what you've seen in the past, the now and the future. And over to you.
Oh, thanks, Adam. Probably some of you sitting here are wondering what I'm doing on a facilities panel. But I guess I was just, Sue asked me that before, why am I here, basically?
It's what I meant, it's not what I said.
No. So, where has my interest in facilities sprung from, I suppose? And I guess it's because there's a couple of catalysts, but the broad view that I have is that we take facilities for granted. Just as we take sport for granted in so many ways, it'll always happen, there'll always be facilities there, and we'll continue to be a sport-playing nation. But I think it takes a bit more effort and energy than that. And I think the story of sport needs to be told more broadly, but that's a whole other conversation. So sitting here before, I was thinking that I could think of 5 50-metre swimming pools that I grew up with that have vanished and not been replaced. And I'm sure that a lot of you can think of facilities that used to be there that aren't there. When I was the chairman of Vic Sport a few years ago, we had an issue with the viability of swimming pools because of increasing gas prices. And it was quite cataclysmic, and the world was going to end because gas prices were going up and up. Then last year, I'm the Vice President of Motorsport Australia, one of my other hats, and I was invited to speak at an FIA conference for mobility. Now, just quickly, FIA has 2 streams. One is F1, you all know about. The other stream is mobility, which is all the auto clubs, so RACV, NRMA, etc. Anyway, they wanted to hear about sport, so I thought, well, what can I talk to people in the motorsport industry about, or the automotive industry? So I thought, I'll talk about facilities. And it really got me thinking about the challenges that we have to maintain and continue to be able to enjoy the facilities. So I created a slideshow with a whole lot of examples. And part of it was piqued by the matter that arose in the papers last August when the Fitzroy Bowls Club was hit with a $59,900 fee increase from the City of Yarra. It had previously been paying $100 a year peppercorn rent, so suddenly went up to $60,000, shoving the club into serious viability questions. It's since come down to $20,000, but it's still a huge impost on a local facility. Sandown Racecourse, for example, is in danger of being turned into 9,000 houses. It provides a green wedge and it's in a floodplain out near Dandenong. If we lose that facility, it'll never come back. And I guess that's the same with the racecourses that are selling off their land. There's Rose Hill Racecourse. We know that's happened here at Moonee Valley, I think, and Flemington's proposing to do the same. So all this alienated land will never be here to be used again for sporting facilities. Moore Park Golf Club in Sydney, 18-hole golf course, excuse me, that Sydney City Council is proposing to turn into a 9-hole golf course. And whilst that might be good for some people, it is again that alienation. And you might remember that during COVID we had Northcote Golf Course here, and the discussion about turning that into a park, a permanent park as well. So all these conversations are about the value of sport, and as we've heard before from the athletes, the messaging that is capable of being promoted about the environment and climate through sporting organisations. So if these facilities aren't there, then it makes it really challenging. Victory is going to spend $35 million on a training facility at Beveridge, north of Melbourne. Is that going to be a community facility? Should anyone have a discussion about that? Where's the community benefit, or is it okay for a soccer club to spend that amount of money? $122 million is the cost overrun on rebuilding the North Sydney swimming pool, which started before COVID and was estimated to cost $50 or $60 million. And one of the builders is now suing the council for $28 million for failure to, or breach of contract. There's a housing estate, probably one of many out west in a suburb called Mamburran here, which some of you may have heard of. The developer proposed and was supposed to put in sporting infrastructure. Nothing there, just dirt. So we have all these opportunities that are not being taken, and that so facilities are just sort of disappearing before our eyes. In 2016, I think it was, the Masters stores closed down. They are big box buildings on car parks, which would be perfect for the use of sports facilities. Likewise, Wesfarmers is about to sell off $300 million worth of its warehouses, which again would be perfect for the take-up of sport. I have quite a few other examples, but in the interest of time, I think I'll leave it there. But I guess my interest is that if we don't have and Sue and the Commission and are getting going on this, but if we don't have a whole of sport conversation, we'll have people wanting to play but nowhere to play. Thanks.
Thank you, Margot. And I think the importance of understanding kind of the built environment and urban environment and wetlands and green buffers, the biodiversity side of what we're trying to be part of is just as critical. The waterways, we've just heard from Pete and Seabin. What happens from when we started the canteen, from buying the Kit Kat or the Mars bar, potentially ends up in the harbour or our waterways. So these facilities play critical roles in terms of the delivery and kind of safety and health well-being of our sports and across our communities. So thank you for sharing those insights, Margot. And I should say, we should be on the other panel, former athlete as well. It's interesting when you do these roles, you learn about people, especially as a former Victorian. Haven't been across the rugby union side, but from a populous perspective in design, you're creating and developing and designing world-class facilities across our regions, Australia, the APAC region, and across your global network. I thought it was just important for the group to see what you're seeing from a architectural perspective, a design perspective, investment, whatever it may be, because the lens you have with the customer and the government is really critical coming from an industry lens. So fire away.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Look, as background, not many people know Populous, although probably more in this room than any other forum. Populous is a sports and events architecture and design firm. We're a global firm in, I think, about 30 different countries, and we specialise in everything from large-scale stadiums. We're designers of this stadium, all the way down to community sports facilities and everything in between. We do lots of high-performance training facilities, we do community sports facilities, we do large indoor arenas, and we do stadiums. And what we're seeing from around the world, and then, sorry, my background is also, I was a professional athlete for 12 years, I was a professional rugby union player. I was lucky enough to play in a couple of World Cups, and then after that I sat on the board of the New South Wales Prioritise and New South Wales Rugby, and saw from them as a governing body the difficulties sport has from a facility point of view and a coordination point of view. So from our perspective, we're really excited about the Play Well strategy. We think it's fantastic. Because there's a lot of really good things happening out there, but it's actually the coordination and collaboration that's needed to actually help more people do really good things, and do really good things with limited resources. So one of the things the Australian Sports Commission does really well is actually join the dots, and everyone's sports, there are a couple of exceptions like the AFL and Cricket Australia and others, but most sports are battling just to do their business as usual, and so for them to then have the support of the Australian Sports Commission to say, hey, maybe you should look at this, or maybe you should do that, or speak to this person, is really fantastic. Because from our point of view, for sports infrastructure, what does success look like? There's basically, to Margot's point, it's having more facilities, have everyone who wants to play sport and all clubs that want to organise sport being able to have access to the appropriate facilities. And that's not just the under-6 footy team on the weekend, but it's the para-athletes and then also the elite athletes as well. And being able to best manage that so they have great facilities and access and equitable access to those facilities. And then for those facilities to be not only climate resilient, but also hopefully contribute positively to the climate is what it looks like. And there's lots of clubs, teams, governing bodies and state development institutions who are actually doing some really good things. And it's hopefully what Play Well will do will then actually be able to get those organisations to speak to other organisations, to put a network of like-minded sports and governing bodies who have done their own infrastructure, who've learnt those lessons, to speak to others, because it's really hard. Most sports clubs, most governing bodies aren't developers, and so when they go into the game of doing their sports infrastructure, it's learning it for the first time. And you see, we've seen some great examples. Sydney Swans facility is a really good example of the adaptive reuse of a heritage building. So again, great from a sustainability point of view. It's a brownfield site. It was an underutilised exhibition hall, which now is an elite and community sports facilities, servicing the Swans community and wider Sydney. Likewise, Parramatta Stadium, again Sydney, so I'm Sydney based, so the Sydney examples. Another great example of a new stadium, but what happened in the periphery of the stadium, the unused spaces outside of event day, was turned into half-court basketball courts, into exercise equipment, into passive and active recreation areas, which then again creates on non-event days this fantastic activation of the site, and then on event days is able to service as participation areas for the sports, and then as queuing areas for ticketing and all that kind of stuff. And so those really great examples we're seeing as being, it would be fantastic for a body, and the Australian Sports Commission is that body, to be able to actually tell others about it. And look, lots of great examples across the world that we're doing, where in denser locations we're seeing vertical sports facilities. So in Singapore and Riyadh we're seeing developments which instead of going out are going up, and again great examples for hopefully Australia to be able to take on board as the cities become more dense and populations demand more sports infrastructure.
Perfect, and I might just stick with you, Al, and we've had a few discussions with yourself and your Brisbane team, and it probably goes back to kind of Kate's comments about Brisbane 2032 and kind of the legacy of kind of planning and vision as it comes to stadium but also community infrastructure. And we talk a lot about management and the cost of energy. This is an issue happening across the Aquatic Centre, large leisure and physical activity venues that have lots of power intensity. What are you seeing from kind of the architectural and design field that if you were to sit back and go, if I had 8 years and my pen and sketch paper, what are those kind of sustainability elements that you would like to see kind of ingrained in kind of the future retrospective design? Just with sustainability architecture.
Yeah, so look, from a sustainability point of view, one of the things, although Brisbane's been a bit slow, it has got some great aspirations in terms of all major venues, whether they are going to be refurbishment or new. They've said it'll be 6-star Green Star, and for those who know the Green Star rating tool, it ramps up every few years. So by the time it gets to 2032, this is going to be significant world-class sustainable architectural infrastructure. And so that from a starting point is really good because it means reduced carbon, it means renewable energy, it means water harvesting, it means reduced waste, all that kind of stuff. As a legacy for the Olympics, though, one of the really exciting things is, although the big, shiny new things are great, but one of the really exciting things are actually we see at the community level as the training venues. So there's about 200 countries coming for the Olympic Games. Each of those countries needs training facilities. They need areas in which to prepare for their sports. And certainly when I was doing World Cups, we spent 80 minutes in a venue, and let's say give or take a couple of hours around that. But we spent all week training the training venue. So I knew my training venue in France or Australia far better than I knew the competition venue because that's where we spent all the time. And so for the Olympics, what's going to be really exciting for South East Queensland is going to be actually the training venues and the money that will be spent, both public and private money, to actually upgrade those. So there'll be council facilities, there'll be school facilities, there'll be university facilities. And again, because the Brisbane Olympic Games Committee has said that it needs to be 6-star Green Star, the vast majority of those will be 6-star Green Star, so highly sustainable facilities, which will then be legacy, or what they're calling pregacy, hopefully pre-legacy venues for the community to use both before and after the Games.
Oh, fantastic. And I should say, if we had any questions from the floor, I do notice we still have time, but I can keep firing away. So I just always want to give the opportunity to anyone that wanted to put their hand up before I keep rambling away. So we're all good? Perfect. So I just wanted you to... this one. Griddian.
Thanks. I guess just coming back to what you were talking about earlier, Margot, about like the tension between, I guess, recreational spaces and organised sport spaces. I guess it'd be great to hear a little bit more about like your perspective on that and sort of decision making around, I guess, what spaces are used for.
Oh, thanks, Ridian. It's a really tricky one. I mean, as Al said, you know, we rely on government to fund facilities, very few private facilities, or compared to the US, I mean, we know that the LA Olympics are going to be basically run out of privately owned venues and facilities as opposed to what's going to happen in Brisbane or what happened in Sydney. But I think if we want, to my sort of fundamental point about having people play sport, we do need to invest in those community facilities that are very easy to use. Cost is always a problem in using them, and I know swimmers particularly get really annoyed having to pay pool entry, you know, to go training, whereas cricketers can sort of rock up and, you know, expenses all met. I'm sort of being broad brush here. So I think it's a challenge, and that the Commission, I hope, will be addressing that balance between the pointy end facilities, e.g. the, not that the Victory one that I mentioned before is a government funding, but they might be getting some government money in it, and making sure that, you know, those pools that I referred to that have closed down, that were the sort of backbone of my childhood and youth, just don't keep disappearing. So somehow it's got to be managed, all those costs of the build and the maintenance, and somebody's got to pay. So I don't think I have a simple answer for you, Ridian, but it's a live question. Thanks.
No, perfect. Any more questions there? I'll just, before we finish, just got a few more minutes before we hand back over to Pete and a bit more housekeeping, but I might just finish with yourself, Sue, quickly. And in this room, I'm just reflecting on it, we have a lot of kind of consultants and the professionals behind the scenes who are making the plans, the products, the strategy that are going to help us make this change at a community infrastructure point of view. What is the role of kind of the industry in supporting or finding the opportunities within the Australian Sports Commission's current plan and future plan as it comes to sustainability and environment with infrastructure planning? This is a very broad question. It can be from management to operations but yeah, I just thought your reflection on that, just from what you're seeing, might be insightful.
Thanks, Adam. I might also just point out, in the last few days, the Australian Sports Commission has moved from the Department of Health in the Commonwealth to the Department of Infrastructure, which I think is interesting and hopefully will provide a further opportunity to kind of combine and align and collaborate on all sorts of things related to infrastructure. But to your question, a little like the development of the broader Play Well strategy, and as Al so eloquently put it, the primary role for the Commission is to provide the opportunity to bring people together, bring the experts together. We are not experts in design, development, in sort of green stars and all of the critical things that are a part of designing, investing and building inclusive, accessible infrastructure. So we can't do that without those consultants, those experts, the people in the room to bring their expertise forth, if you like, and make sure that there's an opportunity for you to sit around a table, sit around a screen, fill in a survey, choose your own adventure with regard to making sure you've got the opportunity to put your views forward. In terms of the super early days of the development of the National Infrastructure Strategy, as I said, we've got a couple of Adams on our group, many of others who are experts in intersectionality, in environment, in multi-sport activities like athletics, and we have AFL, we have cricket, but we absolutely have room for, I guess, the private sector in terms of consultants. And it's a really important point that Margot raised before. Almost all of the infrastructure in Australia is invested in by the government, and it's huge. It's in the billions. So we need to bring together, as I put it, sort of the investor side, the beneficiary side, which is sport, and then that expert side, which is the people who understand the technical components, and the opportunity to bring them together. Hopefully will push us forward, and but now that the Commission is in that broader Commonwealth Department of Infrastructure, there may be further opportunities to really bring in, I guess, the side of investment in sport infrastructure that happens in government, which often happens in sport departments, in with the huge amount of money that is invested in sport infrastructure from the Commonwealth Infrastructure Department. Try to bring those things together.
That's a great point, and I think the role of local government and state government is critical, with approximately 80% of sporting facilities on local or state government managed land, and the ability of people like Hannah at City of Melbourne and their teams and colleagues being able to influence the infrastructure and design phase to have legacy and generational outcomes that provide efficiency but also good stewardship is amazing. So, conscious of time, I'm going to hand over to Pete, and I just want to say I'm very thankful for the contribution today, and hope you enjoy the rest of the afternoon. So thank you all.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you, Margot. Thank you.